السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا رسول الله وآله وصحبه من والاه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. وبعد, dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, tonight inshallah ta'ala we're going to start our main lessons that we have in juz number 23. Today is Friday, and for me as an Imam, Friday is the most difficult day in Ramadan. And that's normal, I think, for any other Imam, any other speaker who has to give Friday Jum'ah while he's fasting, and then at night he has to lead Taraweeh, or instead this year to give a lecture or halaqah. It's extremely difficult, and I ask Allah Azza to add this to my scale of hasanat. Allahumma ameen ya rabbil alameen. Just the fact that you have to speak while you're fasting for a while, it is difficult. It is difficult, at least for me. I don't know about other people, but I really struggle every Friday. And I ask Allah Azza to reward me for this and to forgive me. I'm not complaining, I'm just describing how difficult it is. You know, everybody has his own ibadah. Some people, their ibadah is recitation of the Quran. They are good at this. Some people, their ibadah is teaching. Some people, their ibadah is fasting. Some people, their ibadah is qiyamul layl, praying at night. My ibadah is not fasting. By the way, my ibadah is teaching. Fasting is not my most interesting ibadah that I do. So everybody has a door from which he is going to reach Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب. So inshallah ta'ala tonight, I think we have very important lessons. Why? Because some of these lessons have to do with our aqidah and with our unseen world. And we're going to refute some of the misconceptions that people have about the relationship between human beings and jinn, the unseen world. You know, believe that some people believe that the jinn can control the human being and his actions or her actions. So we're going to talk about this inshallah ta'ala today from Quranic perspective, and to see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to say about this and what Rasulullah has to say about this in his authentic sunnah, right? We're also going to talk about some other parts of our aqidah inshallah ta'ala that are so interesting. But let's start with the first lesson that I have today. The first lesson is Allah Azza wa Jal. It's beautiful. When you open the first few ayat in juz number 23, you will find Allah Azza wa Jal from ayah 33 to ayah 44 in Surah Yasin. We are still in Surah Yasin, and as I said before, Surah Yasin is one of the most important surahs in our tradition. Nabi Al-Sam said, it was narrated that he said, Yasin lima quri'at lahu. If you recite Yasin with the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you to be able to fulfill something, or for something to happen, Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to help you to be able to achieve that thing if you recite Surah Yasin with that intention. And he also the scholars, they recommended for us to recite Surah Yasin next to people who are dying, for example, as the hadith says, اقرأوا ياسين على موتاكم, people who are in the last stage of their lives. I remember in the past with one of my uncles, Dr. Mohamed Masloh, and I don't know if he's watching me right now because he doesn't really know English, but he's in Egypt right now. He's a professor at Usul al-Din faculty in Azza University. And he used to take me with him when I was very young. It was like maybe 10 years ago when I was in Egypt, to take me to some events. And maybe when you go visit some people and you go to somebody's new manufacturer, for example, and that person asks us to recite Surah Yasin for him. So my uncle Muhammad Abdul Jawad, he would ask me to recite Surah Yasin with him. So since that time, I even told him that I know this hadith is weak. And then he told me that's not how you approach knowledge, young boy. It's not how you approach knowledge. Once the hadith is weak, you think that we throw it away and we don't work or act according to that hadith. He said that's not how you approach this hadith. You have to go to the books of knowledge and see how the scholars approach this hadith, even if it's weak. Did they act according to it or not? We have too many. After I grow older and I start to study, I realized that we have too many hadith. Like examples are endless of, in our tradition, weak ahadith that the scholars still took them and they acted according to them even though they are weak. Nowadays we have some people who always claim that the weak hadith cannot be acted upon, and that, subhanallah, I don't know where did they bring this from. I was very young and I tried to approach knowledge in this way, and I was told don't do that by someone who is an expert. He's as I said, is a professor in Usuluddin. Usuluddin is the principles of Deen at Al-Azhar University. It's the name of the faculty. So Dr. Mohamed Abdul-Jawad, may Allah reward him, and his son as well, Sheikh Abdul Aziz. He is his son. Abdul Aziz Mohamed Abdul-Jawad. He's also a professor at the faculty of Usuluddin, the principles of religion at Al-Azhar University as well. And subhanallah, but I always see this gap between the older generation and the new generation in the way we approach our tradition. That's very, very common to see nowadays. And now there is a third wave. Like there was the old way of approaching our tradition, which is to go back to the books of fiqh and just read from the book itself, and then ask the teachers some questions and get to learn from them. And then the next generation came, and they limited themselves to certain scholars or certain school of thought that they go back to, and then they ignore the rest. And then subhanallah, the current generation, which is our generation, what we do is we go online and we read some articles here and there. We don't even read the whole article. As we know, people don't open the articles to read them. We just read the titles, and we take the titles and build on them and act according to the titles of the articles. We don't even read them. Anyway, so I see a lot of differences in the way that people think, regarding our tradition, Islamic tradition. So anyways, that's all my topic today. I just wanted to say that we are different in the way we think, and people in the past, they are so different from our generation. So we need to go back to them and take lessons from them to be able to understand our tradition in a proper way, inshallah ta'ala. So now, the first lesson that I'm going to talk about today is some of Allah's signs that He mentioned in Surah Yasin and also in Surah As-Saffat. In Surah Yasin, verse 33 to 44, Allah Azza wa Jal is talking first about the earth, and then He talked about the night, and then He talked about the sun and the moon, and then He talked about some of His mercy regarding the sea and the ocean. So we recite some ayat together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for example, these are one of the most emotional ayat. When you recite them, even in the prayer, they are so beautiful. And when you listen to this ayat by a reciter who is good in tajweed and has a nice voice, Allah is talking about His favors on us by mentioning some of the signs that we have in this world, and we take them for granted. One thing that's very sad is that we really take Allah's favors for granted. Like, subhanAllah, Allah gave us the ability to speak, and because I can speak every single day, I forget that it's one of Allah's signs that I can speak, that I have a tongue that can move very fast and I can speak. SubhanAllah, the fact that I can see around me, that's also one of the miracles of Allah Azza wa Jal. But because every single day I can use my eyes, I forget about this favor or this sign or this miracle, and I take it for granted. When you look at the sky, for example, when you look at the sky and the earth and how beautiful they are and how strong they are and how powerful they are, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability to enlighten the whole world just like this, and we struggle to enlighten a house or a building, or can we, for example, can human beings enlighten a whole city just like the daytime, to make it the whole city from the beginning to the end look like the daytime? Nobody can do that. If they can do this, they cannot do this to the whole country. If they can do this to a whole country, it cannot be happen to the whole world. The only one who can enlighten the whole world and bring darkness to the whole world is Allah Azza wa Jal. But because we see this every single day, we take it for granted. So Allah keeps reminding us in the Quran of His favors Azza wa Jal on us, so we stop taking them for granted and we start reflecting. And every time I think deeper and deeper to be more thankful to Allah Azza wa Jal, and to even strengthen my iman more. I will just pick very few ayats. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the earth, for example, in verse number 33, قال الله وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. There is a sign for them in the dead earth, the dead land. We give it life, producing grain from it for them to eat. SubhanAllah. When I go to the grocery store, I never think about this ayah. And I don't assume that anybody thinks about this ayah, because we're busy thinking about what we're gonna buy. I'm gonna buy milk, I'm gonna buy bread, I'm gonna buy vegetables, And I don't have time to think about the vegetables and the fruits, how they were produced from a dead land, that Allah Azza wa Jal caused that rain to come down the dead land to produce for us that beautiful crops that we eat from. Yes, of course, as a human being, I can put the seed and I can water it, but who gives us the final product? The one who gives us the final product is not me. And there is no human being who can give us the final product. In fact, Allah Azza wa Jal says, لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. He said, so they may eat from its fruit. So, okay, we eat from the fruit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala produces for us. And then he said, وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ, which they had no hand in making. No hand in making. Human beings might say, no, I'm a farmer. I know how to do this. I know how to produce this fruits or these vegetables. No, you can't, because Allah just created you, and He created this land, and He gave you the talent or the skill or the ability to put the seed and water it, and then He is the one who produces it with the same water into different colors and different sizes and different tastes, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ, we have no hand in making these fruits and vegetables. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and then He says, أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ, don't they thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why are we not grateful to Rabbil Alameen with every single meal that I eat? Nabi Al-Sam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَرْضَى مِنَ الْعَبْدِ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ الْأَكْلَةَ فَيَحْمَدَهُ عَلَيْهَ وَأَنْ يَشْرَبَ الشَّرْبَةَ فَيَحْمَدَهُ عَلَيْهَ. If you want to please Allah Azza wa Jal, just when you eat a meal, say Alhamdulillah, just Alhamdulillah, Allah is going to be pleased. When you drink some water, just Alhamdulillah, one word, Alhamdulillah, Allah is going to be pleased, as He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then He talked about the alteration of the night and the day. He said, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ اللَّيْلُ نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارَ فَإِذَا هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ. And there is another sign for them in the night. We strip from it the day-night. We strip from it the daylight. Then behold, they are in darkness. As I said, the whole world is lightened and then enlightened, and then the whole world is dark all of a sudden with Allah's power, Azza wa Jal, as He said in verse 37. So, what else did He say? For example, let's say go to ayah number 41. Allah just says, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمْ أَنَّا حَمَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ فِي الْفُلْكِ الْمَشْحُونِ. He's reminding us of the story of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, and when he carried our ancestors in the ark that Prophet Nuh alayhi salam built. When there was no water, it was just desert, and Sayyidina Nuh was commanded to build the ark, and he did it alayhi salatu wassalam, and Allah carried our ancestors and the followers of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam in that ark. وَخَلَقُنَا لَهُم مِّن مِثْلِهِ مَا يَرْكَبُونَ. Not only that, He said, and we created for them similar things to ride in. These cars are from the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes, we did it, but who created me? Allah Azza wa Jal. And He gave me the talent to create or to make this car. So this car is from Allah's favors on us. The flight, the plane is from Allah's favors on us. So Allah Azza wa Jal said, we created for them similar things, similar to the ships, to ride in. وَإِن نَشَأْ نُغْرِقَهُمْ فَلَا صَرِيخَ لَهُمْ وَلَا يُنْقِذُونَ. And if we willed, we could drown them. We could drown them. If He wants, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would allow someone to go into a car accident. He would allow someone to be drowned. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. Allahumma ameen ya rabbil alameen. So I would recommend, inshallah ta'ala, that you go tonight and maybe go through this ayat with your family members from 33 to 44 in Surah Yasin to read about Allah's signs and Allah's favors on us. Next point that we have here, one of the most repeated ideas in the Quran. I see it in every single juz. There's no juz that doesn't have this idea. What is this idea that's very important? It's the idea of resurrection, and that we are going to be raised, or we're gonna be brought back to life. That's extremely important. Why do we have this idea repeated in every single juz? You know, for example, now in my masjid, in my Quran halaqah every Saturday, I am explaining the last 3 juz's of the Quran. And people who attend this halaqah, they know how brief this tafsir is. And you know what? We have been in the last 3 juz in like 4 years now. In the last juz, the 30th one, the 30th juz, which is juz عَمَّ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeated this idea almost in every other surah. In every other surah, the idea of resurrection is repeated by Allah Azza wa Jal. So the question now, why is this idea repeated that many times in the Quran, the idea of resurrection? What is the reason behind that? The reason behind this is Allah Azza wa Jal wants us as Muslims to always be mentally connected to the hereafter. So whatever I do in this world, in my interaction with people, at my work, at my school, at home with my family members, I need to put in mind that one day I'm going to be questioned about what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be questioned about what I'm saying right now. And you have to have an answer prepared for all questions. Look what you're doing right now, for example. Anything that you're doing, you're watching, right? So you're watching this lecture. Do you have an answer prepared when you go in front of Allah Azza wa Jal? Yes, inshallah. Ya Rabbi, I was trying to do some sort of ibadah. I was listening to a religious lecture, right? After you finish this lecture, what you're gonna watch, for example, on TV, or what you're gonna do on your social media, or what you're gonna do when you pray Qiyamul Layl, or when you recite Quran, whether it's good or bad, do you have an answer to justify every single action you're doing? So do you have an answer for each question? If the answer is yes, which is assuming inshallah ta'ala it's yes, now you're on the safe side. Just have an answer for every single thing you do or say, because Allah is going to question us. And that's why the idea of resurrection is repeated many times in the Quran. Not almost, it's in every single juz. In every single juz. طيب, you will find it in Surah Yasin, for example, from ayah 77 to ayah 83. And in Surah Safat from 11 to 26. And please go read this ayat with your family to reflect on the idea of resurrection after death, to keep ourselves connected to the akhirah. We're supposed to have this balance between deen and dunya. Not only think about the akhirah, we also have to think about this dunya, but our minds are connected. We're connected mentally to Allah Azza wa Jal, and we have a justification for everything that we do. The next point that I have here is Allah Azza wa Jal called himself in the Quran the best of responders. The best of responders. Look, sometimes I said before how important it is for every da'iyah, for every imam to have people around him helping him. He cannot be everything. Nobody can be everything in da'wah. Nobody can be everything. Like a one-man show in da'wah does not work actually, because Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he said to Allah Azza wa Jalla, Ya Rabbi wa akhi Harun, huwa afsahu minni lisana. My brother Harun is more eloquent than I. Ya Rabbi, send him with me to aid me, support me, okay? So the idea of having some people supporting you in da'wah is very important. But sometimes you ask people to help, and people, they want to help and they do help you. Some other times people help even though they might not want to help you. Some other times people want to help but they can't help you. They want but they cannot help you. So sometimes people want but they can't. Sometimes they can but they don't want. But the only one that will help you every single time, the only one who will respond to me in the best way ever, every single time I call upon him, is Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah, what did he call himself? In Surah As-Safat, next chapter, which is chapter 37, in ayah number 75, Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَلَقَدْ نَادَانَا نُوحٌ. Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, نَادَانَا. Nuh cried out to us, and then he said, فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ. And we are the best of responders. How excellent we are in the way we respond. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. So Sayyidina Nuh, he called upon Allah. There is no one time, wallahi, that you call upon Allah Azza wa Jal, you cry out to him, and he's not going to give you. He's going to respond to you. Whether he gives you something immediately right now that you can't see, your dua is being achieved in this dunya, or he's going to save it for you in the akhirah, or he's going to protect you from a bigger calamity that was going to befall you instead of answering your question immediately. Azza wa Jal. He said about himself, فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ وَأَهْلَهُ مِنَ الْكَرْبِ الْعَظِيمِ. And we delivered him and his family, we protected him, his family and his believing followers from the great distress. طيب. Next point that I have here, the outcomes of Islamic upbringing. A lot of people always ask about parenting, and they ask of me or other imams to speak about parenting and the importance of teaching our kids Islam and how to upbring them, how to raise them according to religion. Here is one of the stories that will tell us about the outcome of trying to strive and struggle against ourselves and taking the time and investing in our children. I don't have children yet. I ask Allah to grant me and everybody else who doesn't have children to grant them children. Allahumma ameen ya rabbil alameen. But the importance of investing. If you don't have children, invest in your community. If you don't have children, invest in the youth in your community. Teach them. Put some intellectual ideas or principles for people to start thinking differently about our Islamic tradition so our life would change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Prophet Ismail. Look how he talked about them. قال الله وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين. Prophet Ibrahim said, I am leaving in obedience to my Lord, He will guide me. He put his trust in Allah Azza wa Jal after he argued with his family or his family and his people, and they tried to kill him. And you know what? Allah allowed them to throw him into the fire, but He ordered the fire not to burn him. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them an earthquake, for example. You're not going to throw Ibrahim into the fire. No. Go do it. Go to plot against my righteous people. Go do it. You're gonna throw him into the fire, but you know what? He's not gonna burn. I'm gonna change the rules, or I'm gonna change the way I design this world because of my righteous slave, my righteous servant, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the fire is not gonna burn him. That's what happened with Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. So he left his people. He said, وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّ سَيَهْدِينِ. And then he said, رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Oh Allah, bless me with righteous offspring. I want a righteous child. So the first thing I need to care about, of course, 100%, I have to care about my children's education, their intellectual well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being. But at the same time, before anything else, I need to put in the first thing on my list is their religious well-being. Are they actually well connected to the one who created them or not? And then everything else also has to be taken care of. But the most important thing is their relation with the one who created all of us. Rabbi habili min as-salihin. Oh Allah, grant me righteous offspring. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Because He said, فَلَنِعْمَ الْمُجِيبُونَ, as He said with Prophet Noah. We are the best of responders. How excellent we are in responding to your du'as. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. Then we gave him good news of a forbearing son. One of the biggest blessings is to have a forbearing son who would aid you at time of difficulties. I remember when I used to help my father. My father had a restaurant, right? I used to help him in his restaurant. I remember when he used to send me by myself to go open the restaurant, and I was very young at that time, and I take care of everything as if I'm the owner of this restaurant. And in fact I am, but indirectly, because my father is the owner, I'm his son. So I was very young at that time. You know what my father used to tell me? Listen to this. My father used to take me with him every day to the restaurant. You have to stay up at night and you wake up very late, and I go to work late to the restaurant, right? Because the main work for people who have restaurants is at night, especially in a country like Egypt. People stay up at night, but during the day nobody's gonna eat, for example, a heavy meal during the day. They eat at night, right? So I used to stay up at night with him. Sometimes it's very difficult, but over time I started to like it. You know what he used to tell me all the time? All the time. He used to tell me, I bring you here with me, and I try to teach you how difficult it is to be an owner of a restaurant. For you to force yourself to go learn something, and that's what he said, that will allow you to sit down and teach. And instead of using your body and your muscles, you will use your mind. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. He passed like 3 years ago. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and all our parents, Ya Rabbil Alameen. So he did that, and he gave me hard time, and he'd take me with him to work, and he even sometimes sent to me by myself, and I was very young around that time, 15 years old, something like 15 or younger. And 15 years old in our time is different from 15 years old at the time of Rasulullah, by the way. so 15 years old, our time is very difficult for him to be by himself at a restaurant, but I did it. And then I realized how difficult it is to use your muscles and your body. You need to use your brain if you want to relax, or you want to have a job that you would like, because this is exhausting what you were doing. That's something he did intentional to me. Rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiya anhu. So what happened with Prophet Ismail and his father, Prophet Ibrahim? Allah said, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعِي. When Prophet Ismail reached an age that he's able to assist his father, he can go to work with him, he can carry the responsibility of prophethood with him. بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعِي. بَلَغ. He became an adult, now he can aid and support his father. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعِي. SubhanAllah. Sayyidina Ibrahim said to his son, يَا بُنَيْ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ. I saw in a dream that I'm supposed to sacrifice you. Allah commanded me to sacrifice you. SubhanAllah. إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ. خلاص. And Sayyidina Ismail knows that when a prophet sees a dream and is commanded in the dream, رُؤْيَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ حَقٍّ. The dreams of the prophets are haqq. Our dreams are not haqq. We're not supposed to build rulings based on our dreams. No, 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 no. Only prophets and messengers. When they see a dream, this dream means there is some rulings that are going to come after. But it doesn't matter if we have a good dream or a bad dream. Just say, that's the whole story about us. But for the Anbiya, it's like revelation. What did he say? قال يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر ستجدوني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. Just do what Allah has commanded you to do. What are you asking about? You don't need to ask. ستجدوني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. Inshallah, you will find me steadfast. I'm going to be sabir with you. Just do it. فلما أسلم وتله للجبين وناديناه أن يا إبراهيم. Both of them were ready, and he let his son down because he's going to slaughter him. He's going to sacrifice him out of submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. وناديناه أن يا إبراهيم. Allah Azza wa Jal called him and he said, يا إبراهيم قد صدقت الرؤيا. You have already fulfilled the vision. إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And because you tried to perfect your deeds, you tried to submit to us, and you tried to fulfill the dream, the commandment, Allah said, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. He said, and we ransomed your son with a great sacrifice. وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ. You don't have to sacrifice him. So the relief comes after you submit. The other day I was talking to my mother, for example, and I was telling him, look, I was very scared of this coronavirus, like everybody else, right? And then I told her, well, I was praying at one of the nights, I was praying, and then I said, I'm all scared to die away from my family. Everybody's scared to die away from his family, especially if you cannot go back home. If somebody passes away, you cannot go see him or her, cannot attend the funeral, stuff like that. And then one night I felt, okay, so what's gonna happen? Let's say I'm gonna die here, away from my family, out of this virus, or some of my family members is gonna die. And then I had that feeling of submission. You just submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. You submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. And then she told me, after you submit, that's an indication that inshallah ta'ala Allah is going to make it easy for you first and for everybody else. Just submission. That's what happened to Prophet Ibrahim. Submit to Allah Azza wa Jal, and then relief comes after you submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. Because there are sometimes things get out of your hand. They are out of control. You cannot control that. Next point. May Allah protect all of us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. اللهم امين يا رب. اللهم انا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام وسيء الاسقام. اللهم امين. The next point that we have here's the point that I was talking about, the relationship between human beings and the unseen world, the jinn. Can a jinn control a human being? Because you know what, we have a lot of people, for example, you see them depressed. It might be a mental problem, it might be a social problem, it might be a financial problem, it might be a physical problem. It does not have to be a spiritual problem. And then we tell each other it's because of jinn or shaitan is controlling him, and we believe that shaitan can control the human being or get into his body. These are very extremely dangerous ideas that cannot be proven without an evidence from the book of Allah Azza wa Jal or the authentic sunnah of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Listen carefully to these ayat from ayah number 35 to ayah number 40 to know that the jinn doesn't have any control on us, and we don't have any control on the jinn. No control. We're two different creations. We're humans and they are jinn. Look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Prophet Sulaiman, Prophet Solomon alayhi salatu, verse 35. We're now in Surah Sad. Surah Sad is chapter 38. We're going to go to ayah 35 and see what Allah said. Allah said, Prophet Sulaiman قال رب اغفر لي وَهَبِ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. Oh Allah, forgive me. What happened is Prophet Sulaiman, he intended to do something and then he did not say Insha'Allah, if Allah wills. So the outcome or the result wasn't exactly what he expected because he did not put Allah's will first. He did not say Insha'Allah. So Allah Azza wa Jal did not give him the result that he wanted, and that's why he is asking Allah's forgiveness. قال رب اغفر لي. Oh Allah, forgive me because I forgot to say Insha'Allah. وَهَبِ لِي مُلْكًا, and focus on this one statement. وَهَبِ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. And grant me an authority that will never be matched by anyone after me. So the blessing that Sayyidina Sulaiman was given was never given to any human being after him. What is that authority? Allah said, فَسَخَّرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ رُخَاءً حَيْثُ أَصَابَ. So we subjected to him the wind, blowing gently at his command, to wherever he pleased. So Allah Azza wa Jal subjected, or he made the wind under his authority. He gives instructions to the wind. No other human being is given this blessing from Allah. And what else? Look at this, the relationship between humans and jinn. قال الله وَالشَّيَاطِينَ كُلَّ بَنَّاءٍ وَغَوَّاصٍ. And we subjected to him every builder and diver of the jinn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjected jinn to Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, that they used to dive and bring pearls for him. Pearls for him. That is something for a human being to have control over the jinn that only happened to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam. طيب, what about the jinn authority on humans? Does it exist? The answer is no. The ayah that you have in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, ayah 275, when Allah said about people who eat riba, كَالَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. If you go to some books of tafsir like Sayyidina Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, you will see him explaining this in a certain way. And he will prove that there is an authority for the shaitan or the jinn over the human being. But if you go to some other scholars of tafsir, like Al-Alusi, for example, from the past, like Imam al-Sa'di, he is a contemporary tafsir scholar, Muhammad Sayyid Tantawi, in his Tafsir al-Wasit, for example, you will see them talking about this as it's a sara', or the kind of junoon. Sara' is epilepsy. This is that we know of, epilepsy. It's not that the shaitan is controlling the human being, he's inside of the body of the human being. Because look what, I'm going to end with this inshallah ta'ala. And this is the last point that I'm going to mention. For the shaitan or the jinn to control a human being, that is something seen or unseen. That is something that's unseen. To prove something in our tradition, and it's going to be a part of our aqid, that's unseen. How to prove it? I have to have an evidence, and that evidence has to be قطعي الثبوت. The first condition is قطعي الثبوت. قطعي الثبوت means it's 100% authentic. Meaning, it's an ayah from the Quran or a mutawatir hadith from the Sunnah of Rasulullah to prove aqidah. Aqidah. I'm not talking about actions. Like Salat Tasbih, it's a different issue. Salat Tasbih that I explained today is different from what I'm saying now. I'm talking about aqidah. And our relation with the jinn is aqidah, because it's an unseen world. طيب. So the first condition, this evidence has to be an ayah or a mutawatir, 100% authentic hadith. Rasulullah said that, there's no doubt about it. Second condition, that evidence that you have, it has to be قطعي الدلالة. Dalala means the meaning. What I'm saying now is this evidence that you have has also to have one meaning according to all the scholars in our Islamic tradition. Like what? Give me an example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions numbers, when He says about hellfire, لها سبعة أبواب. The hellfire has 7 doors. 7 doors. These 7 doors, it cannot be 6 doors according to some scholars, and they cannot be 8 doors according to some other scholars, because Allah said 7. So that's an example of قطعي الدلالة, just one meaning. طيب. The relationship between the human being and the jinn, and people who say the human being can get into your body and control your actions and the way you speak. And subhanallah, we have some people who make money out of this. You know, I can't treat you with the Quran, you just come to me and what is the evidence on what you're saying? Huh? Do you have an evidence that قطع الثبوت and قطع الدلالة? Now I'm gonna listen to you. If you don't, I'm not gonna listen to you. In fact, we have an evidence that's قطع الدلالة and الثبوت in the Quran, Surah Ibrahim, that says otherwise. When the Shaitaan will say on the day of Qiyamah in his khutbah, وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ, I had no authority on you people that you followed me, إِلَّا أَن دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. Indeed that I invited you, I whispered to you, and you followed me. You responded positively to me. That's the only authority he has, to whisper to us, not to control us physically. And if anybody wants to say that he can do that, or that we can control the jinn, or the jinn can control us, he needs to bring an evidence that the قطع الثبوت 100% authentic Quran or mutawatir hadith. Number 2, قطع الدلالة has only one meaning in our tradition according to all the scholars. There is no two interpretations. There is no two interpretations. The reason why I want to say that, because we as Muslims, we need to be active in this life. We don't want to rely on the unseen world and say, you know what, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to work nowadays. I'm not going to work because the jinn is controlling my actions, or because I'm behaving in this certain way because the jinn is controlling my actions. No, nobody can control my actions. Allah Azza honored the human being, and He never gave any other creation authority on the human being. In fact, Allah said, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ ما في السماوات وما في الأرض جميعا منه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has humbled and subjected and paved everything for human beings between the heavens and the earth. Everything is created for our sake. It says nothing can control human beings. SubhanAllah. That is one of the important lessons, because talking about the unseen world, it's interesting. When I was young, I used to like to read this weak hadith in the books of tradition about the relationship between the human being and the jinn. They even used to tell my friends at the school, they used to love it. When we go back from school walking, in Egypt we walk, we don't have cars to drive, we just walk. They always asking me to talk to them about Dajjal and about the unseen world and how the jinn interacts with the human being, because it's interesting. But when you grow older, of course, all of you, mashallah, are intellectuals, you stop thinking like that. None of the other creations can control me. I need to be active in this world. I need to have a balance between my deen and dunya. That's one of the important ideas that we have in juz number 23. Because what Allah gave to Prophet Sulaiman is not given to anyone else after him, as Allah mentioned in the Quran. Jazakumullahu khairan. I feel very tired today. I have my throat is really sore. I will try to see if there's any questions here. The Shaitaan is like the leader of the evil jinn, because in jinn we have good jinn and we have bad jinn. We have disobedient jinn and we have obedient righteous jinn, as Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Jinn. Shaitaan is their leader, and as I mentioned here with the ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah 275 and ayah in Surah Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the Shaitan gives a speech in the day of Qiyamah, and this ayah that we have in Surah Sad in the story of Prophet Sulaiman, they have no control on us, and we on us, and we have no control on them. Don't let anyone play with you, because people play with one another, and you have some people who make money out of this, claiming that they can treat others from whatever. Allah protect us, Ya Rabbi. Ameen. My understanding is that jinn and the humans are two of his creations, and there are shayateen from among humans and jinn. Look, this is another understanding, Dr. Shabir. What you're saying right now A human being can be a shaitan in his actions, but he's not the creation that's called shaitan. What is the meaning of shaitan? Shaitan in Arabic language, it comes from the word shatana. Shaitan is to go out of limits, go beyond the limits. That's the meaning of shaitan. So any disobedient from the humans or the jinn is called shaitan. I agree with you. But shaitan himself, Iblis, is from the jinn kind. He's not from the human kind. طيب? And shaitan can be from jinn and human beings based on their actions, as Allah said in Surah An-Nas, min al-jinnati wal-nas. No, we cannot be possessed. But by the way, we have to respect that we have other opinions in Islamic tradition, but that's not the preferable opinion or the strongest opinion. Yani. What is the difference between maghfirah and afu? Brother Saad, maghfirah, one of the main differences, look, we have different opinions in the difference between maghfirah and afu. But to make it easy for you, maghfirah is the sin is going to be wiped out. For afu, you're not going to even be blamed. It's not going to be mentioned. Because, for example, the day of Qiyamah, Allah can remind you of some sins that you have done, and then He tells you, I have forgiven them for you. That's maghfirah. But afu, He's not even going to remind you of them. طيب. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك فيكم. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll see you tomorrow. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.